good to see you, my old friend. Seems I knew you a lifetime away. I've been traveling on this road and made some mistakes on the way. And I'm learning to breathe again through shadows of the past. And the call of the curlew tells me I'm home at last. And time will take its time. For a moment, fair Rosedale is mine. One day, good friend.
Welcome to Scarborough Archaeological and Historical Society's second archaeological video tour that we're making during the pandemic. We're now in beautiful Rosedale, and as we look around we see this fantastic countryside, and little do we know that in the past this was a hive of industrial activity with mining for ironstone. Our Archaeological Society has a long association with Rosedale through one of our founder members, Raymond Hayes, and in 1974, along with Jim Rutter, who was the curator of the Rotunda Museum, he published this excellent book, Rosedale Mines and Railway, which has been a fantastic resource, although now sadly it's just going out of print. In the 1850s, the population of Rosedale was about 580. And by 1871 it had risen to nearly 3,000, which indicates just the high level of industrial activity which was going on here. And through this tour we're going to be looking at one or two of the sites on the west side of Rosedale. So I'm just going to head off now to look at one of the earliest quarries and mines. And here we are in Rosedale West Mines, which is the location of the earliest ironstone mining activity in Rosedale. Technically speaking, it's called Hollins Mines, and it started working the ironstone in about 1856 from two deposits of what's called magnetite, the Kitchens and the Garbutt's deposits. And this ore had about 60% of iron in it, which made it a very rich ore in comparison to the remainder of the ironstone mined in the rest of Cleveland. Initially it was taken out by horse and cart, about 4,000 tonnes of it, down towards Pickering where the nearest railhead was. Ultimately another railhead was provided by the railway which comes across the moors up Ingleby Incline at the top of the hill at Bank Top here, which we'll go and visit shortly. Initially the magnetite was worked by open casting or quarrying, but later on the mines consisted of drifts driven into the hillside behind us, and later on still they were working what was called the top seam, which was a lower quality of ironstone, around about 38% I think, more consistent with the other ironstones in the region. I have here a copy of the mine abandonment plan, from which you can see the Kitchens and Garbutt's deposits taking a sort of oval shape, and as you look behind me you see the huge scoop out of the hillside where the magnetite has been quarried away. The mine abandonment plan also shows the way in which the drifts are driven into the hillside for the working of the top seam in a system called pillar and board working. And you can see, if you look closely, the position of the drifts behind me. But now that we've had a look at this, I'm going to go to the inclined foot and show you how the ore was taken out once the inclined plane had been built, taking the ore away to the railhead. When the railhead was eventually brought into Rosedale, to Rosedale Bank Top, the difficulty with it was half a mile away from the mines and 400 feet higher. The cottages on the skyline there are railway workers' cottages, so that marks the approximate indication of where the railhead was. The mining company had already got an inclined plane in here to take ore up to there, and I'm standing very near to the bottom of the incline. Actually, it's just over here on this private land, this flat area here, but you can see it running away up the hillside here, and with a bit of struggle I'm going to walk up there to the point where it comes out on the Rosedale Chimney Road. Phew, well that was a bit of a pull. I'm about 3/4 of the way up the incline now, so we'll just have a little break to see one or two other things we can see from the incline. To my left here there's this like a platform running around the hillside. That's further evidence of mining working the top seam. And lower down there's the sites of houses. As I mentioned earlier on, the population of Rosedale increased from about in the 500s up to over 2,800 at the height of mining, which means that people had to have houses to live in. And just down here you can see a platform. There's a fence running along the back of it there, and that was a row of terrace houses called High Row, which are quite clearly shown on the first large-scale Ordnance Survey map, or the first 25-inch map of 1893. And then further down, if you could just see the road there and a red roof just this side of it, there's another row of houses there called Low Row. Again, a row of workers' houses which is visible on the large-scale Ordnance Survey map. And further up the valley there were even more rows. So we'll just finish our progress up the incline to the Chimney Bank Road. So the embankment behind me is where Chimney Bank Road crosses the alignment of the tramway. When they built the tramway, they actually realigned the road. They put a loop in, and for those of you who know this area, where the car park is at Chimney Bank Top is actually on the old alignment of the road. The tramway ran under the road, under a bridge, and although Raymond Hayes and Jim Rutter tell us that the West Mines had gone out of use by 1885, the bridge remained in situ for many years after that. We've got this fantastic photograph taken by Charles Moisley in about 1934 showing the bridge in situ, and better still we've got this earlier photograph taken showing William Hayes, Raymond Hayes' father, with his family sitting just about here where the bridge was. I think he must have taken this on a sort of time-lapse shot. It's an absolutely fantastic family picture. William Hayes was a photographer, and his studio is now at Hutley Hole Museum. So I'm just going to go over the embankment and finish off by completing the final section of the incline at the other side of the road. Oh, before we go, I forgot about this brick. There's lots of bricks lying around here which are detritus from the mining structures, but this one, I don't know whether you can see it, says Pease. It's a Pease's fire brick from County Durham. May have been used in the kilns, which we'll look at later on. Okay, so I've just come over the road where the bridge was, taking the road over the tramway, and I'm going to continue up the incline past the calcining kilns over here, which I'll talk about later on, and we're going to look at where the engine house was that operated the incline. We're at the very end of the incline plane which the tramway was running on. Behind me is the standard gauge railway track coming from Ingleby Bank Top. So behind me, and we'll go and have a look at it in a minute, will be a steam engine which was used to draw the laden trucks up the tramway, up the inclined plane, loaded with ironstone, which would then be manoeuvred on over in this direction to the top of the calcining kilns, and then we're going to have a look at those a little bit later on. So this branch of the railway served several functions. There's two coal depots, one close by which had gone out of use by 1893, and we think that was for supplying coal to the tops of the kilns. And you can just see running over here the route of a possible tramway for the trucks of coal to be taken to the top of the kilns. And then further on, just about where the dustbins are on the horizon, was another coal depot, and that was still in use in the 1890s. And that had, I think, 5 bays for where the coal was tipped into from the wagons, and a public way bridge for weighing presumably horse-drawn trucks which are taking the coal away. So we're going to cross the railway line, and the ropes drawing the wagons up the incline must have crossed the railway line on some kind of timber gantry. We're going to cross the railway line and go and have a look at where the engine house was and the reservoir. So here we are at the reservoir beyond the end of the inclined plane, which is over there. This reservoir was constructed to provide a water supply for the boiler house, for the steam hauling engine working the inclined plane, for locomotives on the standard gauge railway running along here, and also for the workers' houses over there. We've got this fantastic image here of kids playing on the reservoir when it was frozen. I think that's an absolutely wonderful photograph. The engine house is just down here where these humps and bumps are in the grass. There was an engine house, its associated boiler house, and famously the Rosedale chimney, of which we've got several photographs of when it was standing, and this photograph of when it was being demolished in 1972. Loss of a very well-known local landmark at the time. Now we're at the back of one of the calcining kilns. I'll explain a little bit later on about what calcining is. But basically this kiln, it consists of a trough built against the bank. You can see the back wall of it here, and 4 draw arches running down here. Basically, I suppose it's like an overgrown lime kiln. So we go now down to the front of the kilns and have a closer look at them from there. So we're now at the foot of the calcining kilns. Calcining is the roasting of the ore. It's heated up and roasted, and the reason for that is you drive off impurities such as sulphur, carbon dioxide, and that has several consequences. One is it reduces the weight, so reducing the weight reduces your transport costs, but it also makes the ore more suitable for use in blast furnaces. And what we have here is a bank of 2 kilns, the older ones here and the newer ones over here. We'll just go a little bit closer and look at the distinction between the two. So we're close up to the kilns now. This bank, or range this way, was built about 1861. It's got narrow round-headed arches, fantastic stonework, and this batter on the side, which indicates to us that this bank of kilns behind me running this way is a little bit later, because it's putting up against this batter. These have wider arches, they're higher, with semicircular heads, and we do have this excellent photograph taken by Charles Moisley in about 1934 showing the kilns intact. Obviously this quality of stone is really good building stone, and it would be robbed away for use elsewhere, which is why all we've got now is the arches, because they're not really reusable. But absolutely fantastic structures, really fantastic piece of industrial architecture, as it were. So when the ore had been roasted sufficiently, it was loaded direct into wagons. It was shovelled out of the draw arches into specially built metal-bodied railway wagons because it was still hot. You couldn't have loaded it straight into the usual timber-bodied wagons. So we're standing here on the track where the wagons would be stood as they were loaded. The calcining was on the basis of about 1 part coal to 26 parts of ironstone or iron ore, and initially locally mined coal would be used. So I'm standing on the track bed now where the trucks would have been lined up for loading at the calcining kilns and then drawn backwards up onto the main line up by the engine shed where we're going to visit in a minute. And just down below me, something we'll look at as we pass by, are the heaps of what's called calcined dust, a fine dust which was left after the ore was calcined. So here we have the piles of calcined dust which were a waste product of the calcining process in the kilns and were tipped down here. Later on they became a valuable product in their own right, especially from the east side mines. The calcined dust was taken away because it was found it could be used in furnaces in the iron making process. We're coming now close to the junction between the two spurs of the railway. This upper one here is the one which runs to the coal depots, the two coal depots I mentioned earlier on. And also I have a plan produced by the North Eastern Railway in 1908 of their infrastructure here, and it does show a loading gantry further along, and I think that was possibly used for loading calcined dust for taking away after the mines had ceased. Down here is the lower track going to the calcining kilns, and below us the remnants of a much larger number of railway houses, and I'll come back and talk about those a little bit later on. We're now going to go a little bit further along towards the engine shed, and we've got this absolutely fantastic photograph of the engine shed in use with the snowplough parked on this lower track. The track itself had gone out of use because it was no longer serving the calcining kilns, but it was used as a spur siding for stationing the snowploughs, which were invaluable in the winter period because, as you can imagine, up here the line often got blocked by snow. Right, we're actually standing inside what was the engine shed. It was a two-road shed, 2x2 road, it means two tracks. Because the engine shed was the only one on the line, it remained in use for many years after the mines had ceased. We have this fantastic photograph of 1936, not long after the shed had gone out of use, and these other photographs showing a locomotive standing outside the shed. Where we are now is the pit, where routine maintenance was done for the locomotives. The engine shed, after it had gone out of use, the stone was taken down and the stone was reused in the building of Huttonley Hole Village Hall. So if you go down to Huttonley Hole, you can see what is in effect the old Rosedale engine shed, although the design is different from the shed, but the stone is the very stone from here. Around about this point, as we know from the North Eastern Railway plan, was a blacksmith shop and some shear legs, and we also can see the shear legs in photographs of the engine shed. The shear legs were needed because when the locomotives needed to go away for heavy maintenance to Darlington, they had to be lowered down the inclined plane at Ingleby. The centre set of wheels had to be taken out. Actually, what happened was they lifted the locomotive, took the rear wheels out, then moved the centre set back into the position of the rear wheels. That allowed the locomotive at the incline to go over the break of slope more easily. It would have tipped up otherwise. But we have these fantastic photographs of locomotives at the shed and being lifted and the wheels being taken out. Well, I've come now to the other side of the railway line to have a look at this little group of cottages here, which is all that's left of a much larger group of cottages for railway workers built by the North Eastern Railway. You can see a level platform here where there are another row of houses, and we can see from the plan that North Eastern Railway produced in 1908 that there's this array of hen houses and pigsties. It looks like every household had their own hen house and their own pigsty located around here. So these few have survived, and in fact one of these between 1935 and 1953 was a youth hostel, and we've got this photograph showing the youth hostel during that period. Must have been a windy place to come, especially having ridden your bike up Chimney Bank Hill. Must have been quite something as a youth hostel. Right, we're coming towards the end of our video tour of the industrial archaeology of Rosedale West Side. We've got the kilns over here, the mines a long distance away in the background down below us, the railway workers' cottages here, and finally this fantastic image of a train with a brake van, and one of the founder members of Scarborough Archaeological and Historical Society, Raymond Hayes, who took many of these historic images, actually hanging off the brake van. I think that's a fantastic point in which to finish, and I hope you've enjoyed this tour, and I hope in due course you'll make your own way up here and have a look at what there is to see. Goodbye, thank you.
Good to see you, my old friend. Seems I knew you a lifetime away. I've been traveling on this road and made some mistakes on the way, and I'm learning to breathe again through shadows of the past. And the call of the curlew tells me I'm home at last, and time will take its time. For a moment, fair Rosedale is mine. One day, a good friend once told me, everything happens for a reason. I enjoyed the good times, I rode out the bad, grew stronger with each passing season. And I'm learning to breathe again through shadows of the past, and the call of the curlew tells me I'm home at last, and time will take its time. For a moment, fair Rosedale is mine. I came here when my dreams were new. Some fell by the wayside and some came true. It's just the music, it's just these songs, they've carried me all this way through. And I'm learning to breathe again through shadows of the past, and the call of the curlew tells me I'm home at last, and time will take its time. For a moment, fair Rosedale is mine. For a moment, fair Rosedale is mine.